Hi, and welcome to The Conversation Piece from theconversationpodcast.com. I'm Amy Cooper here with Hillary Hansen. Hey. We're podcasting, and it's after 9 p.m., so I'm feeling a little tired. Are you feeling loopy?
I just took a 2-hour nap, so...
You're chipper.
I'm feeling good.
You're ready to go.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Well, Hillary, I'm going to start by asking you a question.
Hit me.
If you had to venture a guess at what one of the most costly diseases is to developed countries, what would you say? What would be some guesses?
Oh, definitely heart disease would be number one, and lung cancer would be number two. So I would say obesity and smoking. Mm-hmm. Those would be my two guesses.
Absolutely. I think those are super costly. I was surprised, though, as we were researching our topic tonight, according to Wikipedia, it said that Alzheimer's in developed countries is one of the most costly diseases to society.
Yeah,
according to
It has to be in terms of long-term care. I bet it's in terms of care and cost on the families and caregivers, but that would be
It must be.
Yeah.
It must be. And the prevalence, actually, I was surprised. Wikipedia estimates that by the year 2050, that 1 in 85 people globally will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Okay. Not just know somebody, but actually diagnose.
Right.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I'll get it. I know it'll be me.
So why Alzheimer's, Hillary? You're a topic girl. Tell me why we're talking about this tonight.
A couple reasons. I heard a radio show on NPR. It was called Talk of the Nation, and they did a show called Wandering, and it was really fascinating. And the theme that I heard when I was listening to the show was people would call in, and the question was, if you know somebody who's wandered, call in and tell us about it. And I listened to the whole show. I got to tell you, Amy, I don't think that I made it through it without crying. It was so sad. But anyhow, it wasn't just sad. It was, one of those things that's just sad and good at the same time. It's loving, but it's sad. But anyhow, the theme of the show was that these people who were caring for their parents they would call in and they would say, my mom had wandered and they were always trying to go home. And I thought it was very emotional to me for some reason, because I kept thinking, what is it about going home that is so compelling to these people? Mm-hmm. What is it that is so deep in their memory about their childhood home? Why are they always trying to go home? Yeah. And so anyhow, that's why I wanted to research it. That's why I wanted to
learn more about it.
Yeah. And that's what I was hoping to come up with. And I kept reading all these Alzheimer's articles, and I was wondering why is it that they're trying to go home? And I kind of, to be totally honest, I kind of came up empty-handed. It doesn't specifically say why they're trying to go home. It just says, what you can do to prevent it, what strategies and tips. So that was, to answer your short question, that was why.
Do you love NPR?
I really do.
I've got to
say. They bring it.
I've got to say, my favorite podcasts are affiliated with NPR.
Yeah.
And they make folding laundry and cleaning bathrooms infinitely better. Like those mundane tasks. Yeah, seriously.
It's good stuff.
So maybe before we get into wandering, let's talk a little bit about what Alzheimer's is, just kind of for anybody who may not be filled in. Because even I think I still have a lot of holes about like what Alzheimer's is.
Yeah.
And so I was reading up a little bit. Basically, it's dementia, and it's characterized.
Well, I think that was the interesting thing too. And I have heard doctors complain that they're very different. That there's dementia and that there's Alzheimer's, and people they get really frustrated when people call people with dementia Alzheimer's patients, because they're different, and that you cannot actually definitively define. I mean, you can't definitively diagnose somebody with Alzheimer's. I mean, you can't actually say it until somebody's dead. I mean, you know what I mean? Like until you've done an autopsy.
And view their brain.
Yeah.
Well, I should clarify. I believe Alzheimer's is a form of dementia.
Okay.
But it's characterized that they say it's incurable, degenerative, and terminal.
Yeah.
And they say it's characterized by, in the beginning, an inability to acquire new memories. And as it progresses, it's characterized by confusion, irritability, and aggression, mood swings, language breakdown, long-term memory loss eventually, and then gradually bodily functions are lost, which lead to death. It also said that the mean life expectancy after diagnosis is 7 years. So meaning about the time from somebody's diagnosed to when they ultimately pass away is about 7 years. But they believe that slowly there's been brain loss for probably up to 10 years before many people are diagnosed. So some of the early things to look for are somebody's inability to acquire new information, to form new memories. It also said it's characterized by plaques and tangles in the brain, like what you said, that really it's after someone, if there's an autopsy done, that's what the brain looks like. And it's also, like you were saying, it's a great burden on a caregiver, I think. And I mean, you said that your grandmother, your maternal grandmother, she died of Alzheimer's. How old were you when she passed away?
I was in college, and she was significantly, older when my mother was born. So, I think she was in her late 80s, or, in her mid 80s.
So that's a little bit about Alzheimer's. I think that there's still just, like science and medicine, they're just trying to find treatments for it. It sounds like there are some prescription drugs that can be taken to try to deal with the symptoms of Alzheimer's, but there really hasn't, to this date, there's not anything significant that can really halt or delay progression of the disease. It's just a degenerative disease. Yeah. And I was telling you earlier, somebody close to me, her mother passed away of Alzheimer's, and it was really hard for her. It came to a point where her mother thought that her daughter was there to steal away her husband, and so became really upset and mean with her. And it just sounds like it can be heartbreaking for the families to see somebody that's been strong and loving and competent and intelligent and see what this disease can do.
We've talked about this before, Amy, but I always think, not that this is in any way supposed to help anybody, but I always think it's interesting. I always consider it a cruel irony in life. I always think that whatever it is, your greatest gift in life, that's probably how you'll die.
Go on.
Like if you have a great, keen mind, if you're an intellectual, it's probably how you're going to go. But one of our good friends, Heidi, had a law professor that she always talks about. It was her favorite law professor, and he was a great litigator, and he died of throat cancer. So, there's these great ironies in life. My grandmother, she went to medical school. She has this great mind and lost it, literally, So.
And you said for her it was pretty fast, right?
Well, for me it was. I don't know if it was for her.
But I mean, like the time from when she was diagnosed.
Like you said, it seemed like the median is 7 years. I've heard early onset seems fairly young. It seemed pretty late, and she got it, and it came on fast, and she forgot everyone pretty quickly.
And generally, it's characterized in people over age 65. Yeah. But what's weird to me about that is my parents are 65 and 66. I'm like, I don't want to think of them in that age group. No. They're not like that to me, though.
I think that a lot of Alzheimer's caregivers really focus on the caregiver, not as much the Alzheimer's patient. When I was in one of my psychology classes, we watched a video on Alzheimer's and the family members, and it was really cool. I thought there was this, I always remember this, there was this really great woman, and she wasn't taking care of her mom fully yet, but she was dealing with her mom who had Alzheimer's, and she said she was, one of the signs is irritability. And I thought, that's not really that's funny. That's not really a sign. That is like a side effect. Well, I'd be irritable too if I couldn't remember how to tie my shoe. I mean, come on. You know what I mean?
If I couldn't remember how to get to the bathroom.
I mean,
I'm hungry. How do I get food?
I'd be irritable too.
True.
You don't remember if you ate or not. You don't remember who these people around you are. I'd be irritable too.
Just to feel disoriented all the time.
Yeah. So
that's a good point.
Come on.
Have a little compassion.
Jeez. Come on, people. But anyhow, she said this daughter who was dealing with her mother, she said initially when my mom when we really started to pinpoint that it was Alzheimer's, and she said I was fighting with my mom a lot and explaining things to her, and she's like, no, I'm Lori. I'm not, this crazy woman from the past. No. And she's like, she's like, so one day I got this message, and it wasn't just one day, it was like repeatedly I would get these messages from my mom. Are we going to Hawaii today? We're going, okay, I'm going to pack now because we're going to Hawaii today. I'm going to pack. I got to go. And she's like, I got about 6 messages, and I kept calling her, and I kept saying, no, Mom, we're not going to Hawaii today. And then she's like, she kind of had this epiphany, and she's like, you know what? Why can't we go to Hawaii today? Like, let's just, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Well, why can't I be Tiffany? Who cares who I am? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if let's be in Hawaii today and I'll be Tiffany today. I'm not going to spend the rest of her life fighting with her. So I always remember that. I always remember how it, like, you know, to use your word compassionate. I always remember how compassionate her.
What a shift in thinking.
Yeah.
Too, to all of a sudden have that moment.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Go with it.
Yeah, just go with it. Let's be in Hawaii today, Mom, and I'll be whoever you want me to be today, Mom. And I think that was really a good moment for her. And I think that the rest, I mean, I'm certain that the rest of, you know, her mother's life wasn't easy for the daughter, but I certainly, she said that really helped me. So that was,
I really must like to remember that. How many years ago? It must have been like 14 years ago.
When I took that class?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 18 and now I'm 34. So
16 years ago.
16 years ago.
Good memory, Hal. Yeah. But have we talked about this before, that sometimes when patients suffer from mental illness in their reality, which isn't real reality, they're so much happier. And sometimes there's people, the professionals who treat them, they're almost like, why cure them? They're
why
happier.
Bring them back?
They're happier where they are than where reality is.
Yeah.
So I thought that's pretty interesting. That story about that lady.
Yeah.
Being a caregiver would be hard. It would be a big responsibility to be wearing.
It would be, yeah. It's like more of a calling. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting, you forwarded me this article from Time magazine from August of 2009 titled, What Britney Spears Can Reveal About Alzheimer's.
Making her contribution to science, Britt. I love Britt.
Good old Time magazine.
Good old Time magazine.
But they were talking about some ways that you can try to detect Alzheimer's earlier. And they found that if you take people, and they divided people up into 3 groups. They divided people into groups who had they weren't at higher risk of Alzheimer's. They had people who had a family history of Alzheimer's, and then they had a group of people who had a family history of Alzheimer's and also had a genetic marker that they could be predisposed to developing Alzheimer's disease. And they would show them pictures of celebrities, some who were really common, like Britney Spears or Johnny Carson, and then they'd show a little more obscure celebrities. And while they would show them these pictures, they would look at their brains using functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI. And they noticed that in the people who had the family history of Alzheimer's and the genetic marker, even though they had no signs or symptoms of Alzheimer's currently, that different parts of their brain were lighting up when they showed them the pictures of the celebrities, as opposed to the people who had no family history or without the genetic markers. And they think that those people, their brains may have started to degenerate in some ways. And so certain areas of their brain were having to work harder to make up for what part was deteriorating. Okay. So science, they were saying, is just they're trying to find different ways to diagnose the disease earlier so that hopefully these treatments that they're trialing and testing, they can try to delay the onset of Alzheimer's to the fact, I mean, if you can delay it by 5 to 10 years, people might die of other causes instead of, dying of Alzheimer's would be a really hard way to go. So I thought this was kind of an interesting way. They're always trying to find new ways to diagnose the disease. Yeah. Should we talk about wandering then?
Yeah.
So talk to me about wandering. It affects about 60%. They said 60% of Alzheimer's patients at some point will have a wandering episode.
Yeah, I was surprised at how dangerous it was. I was surprised at, if you don't find the patient within the first 24 hours, at how dangerous it was, like at how likely they were to be injured and how unlikely they were to return home. Mm-hmm. That was shocking to me.
So it said of those found within 12 hours, 93% survived. Of those lost more than 24 hours, only a third survive. Of those lost more than 72 hours, only 20% survive. And one thing I thought was interesting, these people are confused. If they're found, they may not know their name. They may not know where they live. Mm-hmm. Often, they won't respond to people calling or shouting their name. They said that often it can trying to find an Alzheimer patient who wanders is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Yeah. Can you imagine trying to find someone that wouldn't respond to their name?
No.
I mean, it would...
No, I can't even imagine.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And then one thing I said, you said from the NPR show that you heard, a common thing is people trying to find their way home.
Yeah.
But another thing that from the reading that we did was a lot of these people, some of them are trying to find the bathroom. Some of them are hungry and they're trying to find a snack.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, it's really they're trying to fulfill a physical need.
Yeah.
That can be one reason. And another could be a routine. Like there could be a person that every day at 5 p.m., they wander, and it's because they're trying to go home, because that's when they go home from work.
Right.
So it can be those kinds of things, trying to find if there's a pattern and if there's a way you can fulfill their physical needs, or if they're restless, trying to find a way they can get physical activity to reduce the wandering. What else surprised you about the wandering or kind of struck you about it?
I was surprised at how free they were.
Oh, you're like, how did these people get out?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Well, I guess one thing it was saying, too, is you can start to camouflage doors and doorknobs, and you can try to label things, like this is the way to the bathroom. This is the way to the kitchen. It's true, though, but what I thought is if it's 60% of people at some point will have a wandering episode, I mean, there's a first time for everything. You might think, oh, so-and-so, they've never done this before. And so you wouldn't take the kinds of precautions.
Yeah, and a lot of them were saying that they wander before they're actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Mm. That was what one person was saying. She was saying there was a lady who lived in New York City, and she was saying that my mother wandered off for hours, and she wasn't diagnosed with Alzheimer's for
and when she found her mom, she said, "Where'd you go?" And she said, "Oh, I went to get a manicure and to get something to drink or whatever." Mm-hmm. But she said that she noticed that her mother was starting to scrape her feet along the ground, which she said is a common symptom of people with dementia, which I'd never known that before.
I did not know that.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I think what I would do, though, is I would definitely, they have GPS devices. Wristbands that you can put on people, because of the people who actually use that GPS tracking system, they have recovered almost all of them within like 30 minutes of when they leave. Yeah. So it sounds like it's probably expensive.
Yeah.
One of the costly. Yeah, but it's a way to keep them safe. So that's kind of it about Alzheimer's. Any takeaways?
My big takeaway from the initial radio, the show that I listened to on NPR was I just thought it was it really struck me how relevant it was that they were always trying to go home. And I remember thinking, I just want to create such a great home for my kids that they always want to come home. Even when they don't remember anything else, even when they don't remember their spouse or the way to the bathroom, that they always want to come home to me. I remember... That was what I remember thinking. And the second thing I remember thinking is if this does ever happen to somebody I know, I remember thinking, why not be in Hawaii today? Who cares? Who's it hurting? That's great.
Yeah.
Those were my two big takeaways.
Yeah. Well said. Go NPR.
Go NPR.
All right.
Psychology 101 at the University of Utah.
I know, you really kind of carried it with your stories today. Well, that is the conversation piece from theconversationpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next time.